who are now in the webinar, which is on the law of webinar averages, about typical. So I think what we might do is just get started, and then if others come in a few minutes, that's fine. So just to flag for everybody, we are planning to record this so that we can make it available to those who wanted to come and couldn't make it because of a conflict or something. So we will be doing that shortly. So that's just a heads up for everyone. And also, just so you know, my colleague Kendall is on the call with us today as well, and she's going to be monitoring the chat and the Q&A and things like that, so that if you guys have questions that you want to raise, please do throw them in that Q&A section. I think Kendall's already put in a placeholder note for all of you, so if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in there, and we will address them as we go. So yes, welcome everyone to this GECA and Rebuilt conversation. Esther and I have had a great many conversations over the last few months, and this is going to be one more delightful one. It's been very interesting, I think, as we have gone through where we're at, what we're doing, what our organizations are trying to achieve, just the number of ways that our organizations are complementary in their approach to things. And it's been really delightful. We had I guess we both contribute different tools to help deliver the sustainability outcomes that all of us know that we need. And so it's great to get a chance to go through a little bit about what that looks like for each of you today. So thank you all for joining. Look, I think when Esther and I started talking earlier this year about what Rebuilt is doing and where GECA is at in our own process of trying to increasingly drive better and better sustainability, it seemed very clear that there was a connection, because there is just an increasing need for carbon reporting, embodied carbon numbers. It's showing up more and more often. It's a priority for government. It's a priority for investors. It's a priority for a lot of corporate decision makers. It's part of the required financial disclosures that are coming into place for Group 1 companies, starting, well, now. They're on the road to trying to get that together now. So the timing is now when this conversation needs to happen. And I just feel like, honestly, the tools that Rebuilt has brought into this market couldn't have come at a better time. So I'm so grateful to be able to have this conversation. And Esther, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. So we want to work together to bring credible carbon and sustainability within reach of people, small companies, big companies, complicated companies, simple companies. We want to bring those things together for all of you. Now, at the risk of maybe sharing something that is familiar to all of you, I thought it might be worth just kicking off with a quick overview of who GECA is and who Rebuilt is, because when we looked at the participants here, we realized that some of you know GECA very well and are coming to the webinar that way. Some of you know Rebuilt well and are coming to the webinar from that way. Some of you maybe know both of us a little bit, or neither of us particularly. And so it might be worth just giving some overall context to who we are. So GECA is an organization that's been around 25 years, and we mostly exist to provide ecolabel certifications. And what that means is we look at products all the way through their life cycle, from the perspective of impact on the environment, impact on human health, impact on the society in terms of the people who make and use the products, and also whether the thing works. And we try to assess products all the way through their life cycle from those 4 angles and demonstrate that they're really holistically better for people and planet. And everything that we ask is required. You don't get to pick and choose what you talk about. You have to do them all. And that gives certainty from a procurement perspective, because if you see that GECA tick, you get everything. Yeah, so hopefully that helps just bring clarity to things. GECA also does claim certification, but today most of the conversation is around that ecolabel and how the ecolabel interacts with the tools that Rebuilt has made. So Esther, do you want to give a quick overview of Rebuilt?
Yeah, thanks. And, I've been a massive fan of GECA for many years now. Lots of people on the call will know that I've been hanging around this space for years, and we care to put a number on nowadays, working in policy, in program, and also at that nexus of data and making sure that we're making really confident and aggressive progress towards net zero and sustainability. And GECA's always set the high bar for that. It's globally connected, and I think it's really historically spoken to the things that the sustainability department needs. That breadth of elements that you pick up is something which really resonates, I think, with customers and with internal stakeholders alike. And I've worked on a few different GECA standards with you guys over the years, and I've obviously worked in a few different policy spaces. This rebuilt play, this business that we're building is actually one of the more targeted and simple projects that we've worked on. I'm historically drawn to these wicked problems, and sustainability certainly is one of those. But I think for me, the why for Rebuilt is about saying restricting the amount of carbon emissions that go into the atmosphere has not gone away as a problem. And in fact, even though there are many other problems to solve, we know that it's getting worse and not better, and the urgency is only getting higher. So I think the Aspect report said the built environment needs to drop 60% by 2035. And we did a pretty good job in dropping operational emissions, but that is actually the same job, twice as hard in half the time. And so, but as a collective, we're good at measuring carbon. We've been doing this for a while. What we haven't really been very good at doing is measuring it from a bottom up. We can't point at things and say that's how much carbon emissions are in that. And of course, EPDs have been in the market for a long time and doing a cracking job at that. But the scale and the speed and the availability of that data just needs to just leap forward if we're going to have any fighting chance of driving this change in a 10-year period. An EPD lasts for 5 years, as does a PCF, but that's one data. We've got 2 data cycles before we hit that 60%. So for me, looking at starting Rebuilt, that was my why, is how do we make good, solid, credible carbon information available at a product level, and how do we do that quickly, cheaply and simply, and in a way that also empowers manufacturers to make good decisions to work with their supply chain. We know that change comes when people have good, meaningful conversations in their supply chain that is informed by data, and that's very much what we are intending to do with Rebuilt. So Rebuilt is, I guess, 3 things. It is a verified product carbon footprint, and I'll tease out a little bit later kind of what exactly that means. But the key thing is it's an ISO standard. It's in the same family of standards as the ecolabel and as the EPD, the 14,000 series. So we're all in the same gang, but we have just simplified it by pulling on 14067 to just do carbon. And then we've obviously put a platform in place that helps people to monitor and measure and make improvements on that over time. And then there's a marketplace, because the other thing that we know is that a lot of this demand is coming from your customers. As manufacturers on this call, you know how to measure your organizational carbon. It's actually helping your customers to be able to roll that number up. So, and to make good decisions off the back of it. So we also have a marketplace that helps architects, specifiers, quantity surveyors to find those great products, to find those companies that care, and to connect with them so that your good efforts are then elevated up and you get the rewards for making that effort. So it's verified ratings, it's a management platform to help you strike out for net zero, and it's a marketplace to help you win and succeed in a carbon constrained marketplace.
Esther, amazing. What a wonderful tool, and you guys have spun this up in a relatively short period of time. So it's a very impressive project and very impressive product. So again, lovely to be working with you. I think one of the things that's really interesting is I would say most people on this call are very committed to sustainability, as clearly you and I are. But we also understand that in a commercial environment, we need to have commercially meaningful tools, because otherwise it becomes very difficult to keep investing in those sustainability outcomes. So let's just start with the market demand. From what you're seeing right now,
Mm.
where is the demand for market reporting coming? You've teased a little bit of that. Can you just expand? Who's asking for this stuff right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the product carbon footprint that we've created can be used for any kind of product. But we have started with the building and products and building construction products and interiors sector because they face multiple drivers all at once. So we expect, if we look into the European market, this carbon disclosure to come for all products in all categories. But the most pressing demand is coming through the twin forces of building and planning regulations and requirements, which have been around for a little bit longer, and I'll tease that a little bit. And then, of course, as you point out, we've now got corporate climate disclosures coming too, and those things are coming together as these twin forces. So lots of companies, particularly in the tier 1 level, have had voluntary targets for a long time. You know, science-based targets are pretty well established in this country, and they require a consideration now of scope 3, aka the things that a company buys. And I think that's where this new set of pressures is coming from. And then they also require you to say, what are you doing about it and how are you making a reduction over time? So we're used to seeing those in the top tier. But what we've now got with corporate disclosures is actually that is happening on an annualized basis, on a must-do basis. It's going up through the CFO's office. The board is accountable for those numbers. And so it's come out of the realm of the sustainability department into corporate affairs, into the CFO's office. And that shines a very big, bright light on where are these numbers coming from scope 3. And it is a different lens because they're thinking about the thing that they buy, not what's the organizational's overarching emissions that we're working with. And so I think that we talked about this, we did an article a little while ago, but that's a tsunami. Like, we thought we were doing really well in the building sector, but that is a much bigger wave of pressure and visibility, but it's also a tremendous opportunity for the people, as you say, who do care about sustainability, who are looking to differentiate, is you now are getting the attention of the serious people and of the money people. They want that number. They want to be able to rely on it. They want to be able to pass it on to any other insurers with minimal of double handling. And they also don't want to pay $1 gazillion for it because this is only one of the things that they have to do. You know, now ESG is taking on adaptation and it's thinking about corporate risk. Just get the carbon numbers done, make them reliable for me. Let's get on with solving it. And then let's move on to these bigger, gnarlier problems that we've still got coming down the pipe. Yeah. So that's the corporate space. And that's considerable. Like, that's a considerable shift. I could talk buildings. Did you want to jump in and respond before I do that?
Yeah, well, no, I was just going to add to that. You alluded to the financial people, and I would say from our side, we are hearing much more that, look, there are cycles and trends when people talk about sustainability, and sometimes they talk about it loudly, and sometimes they talk about it quietly. Sometimes they don't talk about it at all, which is not great, but it happens. But what doesn't change is the fact that investors, bankers, insurers, people, super funds, people that have big pots of money, they care increasingly, and that's not going to change. Because for them, this is about long-term investment. And if a long-term investment means that the planet's going to get warmer and their product, their building, their infrastructure, their whatever it is going to lose value over time, that is not in their interest. So they care, and they are requiring transparency. They're requiring decision-making. They're requiring reporting for their own investments. And I don't think that trend is ever going away. That's just going to ramp up too as that filters down from the most sophisticated to the increasingly just day-to-day investors who need to see this stuff. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, the size of companies reporting comes down again this year. It comes down to a $50 million turnover with assurance in a couple of years' time. So even if that's not you as a manufacturer, it's probably definitely the target customers you've got in your supply chain.
That's it.
And if you want to get on that list, then just have that data available to them when they request it, because I guess that's the other thing, is this cadence, this annual cadence is really interesting as well. When you're building a building, it's a 5-6 year kind of time horizon, not quite the same in furniture and fit out, sort of cycles there, but a lot can change over that time. But now, if I've got a report and I want to align it to my annual reporting, I want the latest best numbers of the things that I bought for you in this year, and I want you to be contributing to a downward trend line. And if you're not contributing to my downward trend line, why not?
Yeah,
That's
and I'll find someone who will.
What the system will be.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
it's very true. Look,
I think on the building side, and just to maybe tease that out a little bit as well. So, we've had pretty mature standards in this. GBCA have been thinking about upfront carbon for several years now. Think it's fair to say that is only increasing in its focus. Neighbours, of course, came out with their embodied emissions at building level just last year. But both of those organisations, if you want to demonstrate how you're improving over previous performance, you actually need good specific numbers in. So we've gotten by with good leaders having primary data and everyone else having a sort of category average. But this issue about what is good and what is better is at the nub of it. So we need specific and readily accessible data to be able to drive that conversation, and we're seeing that really stepping to the fore. And we're seeing top tier builders requesting that information in order that they can build up all of the little things they buy into what is the big story at project scale, because we know that there are 10 or 20% worth of savings through better design and dematerialization, and then there's 10 or 20% from better products. So if those product manufacturers want to keep getting specified and not designed out, they better get on the train and demonstrate that they are helping with this more thoughtful kind of design approach. And that's increasingly applying not just to hard sell and the big heavy materials, but to the interior fit outs as well. And rightly so.
Esther, it's hard to believe that it was a year ago. I remember having a conversation with some quantity surveyors who were saying, we won't ever recommend the purchase of a piece of furniture that doesn't have an embodied carbon number now. And they had customers who were refusing to buy anything that didn't have an embodied carbon number. And exactly what you're talking about, I think that's going to grow. But look, just jumping to the next point here, I feel like, there's a lot of EPDs in the market. We've been hammering on as sustainability professionals about the importance of transparency, and EPDs were really the only way to provide that for a long time. But we also know that there is no way to deliver the quantity of EPDs that we need to get that level of transparency in time for us to meet our carbon goals. It's just not physically possible. We don't have the people, we don't have the tools to get all of those across the line. So how is a product carbon footprint different from an EPD or a brand claim? Just run through that in brief, and then give people a sense of how those compare.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things to pull out there. The most important from a methodology point of view is to say that they are consistent and comparable, because they come from they are both a life cycle assessment. They are using the same calculation methodologies, they are using the same inclusions, and they use the same boundaries. So to the extent that, any two EPDs may draw on different data sets, they may be produced at different times, they may have different inclusions. So there's always a watch out when you compare an EPD to another EPD. But within that realm, a PCF is exactly the same. So you still need to exercise appropriate thoughtfulness when you're comparing two products, and we help to do that through the marketplace. But essentially, it's the same methodology, and you can have great confidence around that. And then what we do, because our building all programs are all looking for verification, and particularly when you're early on, and that's a very important step. So we run a risk-based, desk-based review of all of the evidence. So you can use our platform, and you can put in all of your products, and you can see what the difference between the variants are. And this is really important when we start to be able to try to solve for organisations that have lots of variants. Furniture is a classic one of those, but cement is actually, and concrete I should say, are actually the same. But you can get good visibility on that, and then you can verify when you need to verify. And that, I think, is also really important, because these top tier companies are having conversations at the beginning about what's your carbon number and what's the best number, but they might still not buy that product. They might buy this product, or they might ask you those questions and then still go and buy from someone else. So having all that data at your fingertips, and being able to verify on demand when that order comes through, is part of the benefit of the platform piece of our story. So and when you hit the verification button, you have to upload documentation that gives a due diligence review of where does your material come from, what's its composition, how are you transporting it, what is the energy intensity of your factory, the emissions intensity of your factory, a little bit about packaging and recycling, a little bit about your recycling, because obviously that gives you good carbon numbers. So we said there's like 7 big questions you need to be able to answer to be able to do a PCF. And every manufacturer knows the answer to those questions. They know their materials well. They know their factory consumption well, because energy consumption is profit. So we consistently find people are able to access that information and to get started really easily on the platform, and then to have that documentation reviewed by an LCA professional prior to verification. So what you get at the end of it looks, feels, touches, smells like an EPD, but it just has the carbon number and not those other environmental criteria. And that's the primary difference.
I think that's right. And there's a, as you alluded to at the beginning, right now, whether it's government sustainability efforts, or it is reporting, or it's just being driven by the mandatory reporting that's coming in, we know that carbon is the primary thing that people want today. It's that's the primary data point that they're looking to have a verified number for. And so while the other components of sustainability are very important, as we will fully support, when it comes to having that verified number, that's the most key thing. So,
and I think that's what's great about this partnership that we've got, right? Because all of your framework remains critically important. Set the frame, be accountable, look broad, not narrow. But then there's this little boring little carbon number that you must have as well. So by pairing those things, you know that you've set the right context. What I really love about the GECA criteria is they're the environmental criteria that investors and customers can connect with. That you're thinking about air pollution, you're thinking about supply chain, you're thinking about human health. Those are the stories that resonate and that are understandable to customers and markets. And that's why you score so highly in Green Star and your certifications, and rightly so, because that breadth and meaningfulness still has an incredible amount of currency. But now there's this other tedious little bolt-on that I'm going to provide at the least possible cost, so that you can, in combination of those two, get the most points with the most coverage in the most lean and efficient way, and go back to making great product. Because all of this is, let's face it, a distraction from your key job as manufacturers of building and selling great stuff that's fit for purpose, that brings people joy.
Yeah.
So let's get the job done. Let's take the money out of sustainability measurement and let's put it back into management and taking action and your core business. And I think that's why the GECA Rebuilt combo works so powerfully, and why I'm so excited about the partnership.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, should we talk a little bit?
Yeah. I was going to say, like, how is it actually going to work together for people?
I'm going to jump in here because I think this is where I'm quite excited about this. So historically, GECA has not, because we are an organization that exists to support large companies doing amazing things, but also small companies who are innovators, creating new products, trying to do something different. We have tried to stay away from making it mandatory to have, that third-party verified EPD, because the time, the cost, the effort often made it very difficult for people to meet that, particularly if you're small, a startup, you have a new product line, you're not sure how it's going to react to the market, even though you know it's been built according to best practice. And so we have shied away from that. Now, what we do know is that, as Esther said, in the built environment, that is changing. And probably in, I don't know, maybe 18 months or 2 years, we're going to be at the point where anything in a building that wants to be considered best practice has to have an has to have a verified carbon number, whether that's through an EPD or a product carbon footprint. Um, and but that verified embodied carbon number is going to have to be there for it to be ticked. So even though you can be doing all of the sustainability things that GECA sets out, right, it won't be recognized in a couple of years' time as best practice if you don't have that embodied carbon number. And so we need ways where lots of great sustainable products can do that. And Rebuilt obviously is a great tool for that. Some of our standards currently do require, well, some of the criterion in some of our standards do require a verified carbon number. And we're already working to make sure that where historically it's been an EPD that's been shown as the way of demonstrating that, we already acknowledge, a third-party verified product carbon footprint is equivalent and the same because it's faster, it's cheaper, it allows more of the product range to be certified in that way. It allows for sustainability and innovation. And wonderfully, because of the way your tool is built, Esther, I think it's really great for innovators because they can go and put in, the information that they have about that, get an indicative kind of sense of what that product carbon footprint is, and then go and get it verified when they're ready to take it to market or they have a specific customer segment that needs that verification, and that allows you to invest, your sustainability budget on the places where, you need it from a commercial perspective. But you can have the guidance along the way. So, GECA standards are available to everyone. We have 25 different product and service criteria. Anyone can download them and use them as a guide for what is good practice? What is, in fact, best practice in this space in Australia? How do I do that? You can use that as a guideline. You can use the Rebuilt tool to go and say, well, if I do it this way, what's the indicative, carbon number in that? What does that look like? If I make some changes, how does that change that number, right? In ways that are holistically sustainable because they've been built according to the GECA guidelines and standards. And then what you get is you get something that not only has a low embodied carbon number, but is also holistically sustainable. So you do both. Because look, we all know that carbon is a very important part of the story, but it's not the only one, right?
Yeah.
And it is possible to make a product that has a low carbon footprint that is pretty crap on the people in your supply chain, or maybe made with chemicals that just aren't great for the environment. And the carbon footprint alone doesn't answer that. And that's why GECA and Rebuilt are a powerful combination, because you can use them both to guide product development, to create that very strong holistic narrative with that really key data point. So,
and I think just to build on that, Josh, like
yeah.
it's the same in the inverse, right? So we let people, if you've got your own data, bring it. If you don't have it, but your supplier has an EPD or a different verification or any environmental management system or whatever, bring that. And if you don't have that, we have background data that we can help to sort of fill in the blanks using EcoInvent and these very industry standards. We obviously preference the more specific. The more specific data involves working with your supply chain. And if you work with GECA, you're already doing that. And so these difficult conversations that will be coming from a standstill start about some of your energy bills or whatever, which can be tricky, right, at the beginning. But if you already have a constructive relationship because they know your values and you're exchanging data, then this is a really short hop. And I think not just from a data provision point of view, but actually from the achievement of savings. So the number of customers that we've worked with And you get a nice hotspot analysis at the end that says which component is driving most of the emissions. Is it the metal base, or is it the fact that your wood chips come from very far away, or a carbon intensive country of origin, or what have you? And so that really informs those decisions. And it means that individual manufacturers can turn to their suppliers and say, I really like this thing that I buy from you, but you're turning up as one of my hotspots. Do you have another version that's got more recycled content in it? Or have you thought about, do you have any plans to upgrade your facility or to put it onto green power or to increase this process? And we know that actually those conversations are the great unlocker. Nearly always the next person up the value chain is also trying to build their internal business case to get the PV or to go to the biodiesel. And what they desperately need is a signal from their customer that says, I would buy it if you made it. And so just the act of starting that conversation creates this positive cascade up and down the supply chain and unlocks, I would say, in the experience we're having, more savings than stop working with that supplier and go over there, or implement a new waste recovery program. A good, meaningful conversation with your supply chain will open up opportunities that, and a lot of them may be low or no cost. They're just, how else might we do this together? And that's a really beautiful part of sustainability as well, right? That's what good collaboration should look like. And everyone wins. And that's, again, what we're looking for here is, mutual wins.
And I think that approach is exactly, Esther, why we love working with you guys, is because that is our ethos as well, right? Engage with your supply chain, be creative about how we solve these things so that we can demonstrate that holistic improvement and do it over time. It's awesome. Maybe if we jump down, I'm just going to combine a couple of different concepts and throw to you the question of how do we reduce the cost in practical terms and the lead time to get that verified carbon. You've already talked a bit about that. So as we're talking about that too, maybe let's also talk about just confirming what's the shortest path to get there. So what's the cost and what's the shortest path to get there? Particularly, we know that a lot of people are wary of investing huge amounts of time and effort because their own time is a cost as well, right? How do we make sure they avoid really bad pitfalls and burn a lot of time and effort in something that's not so important and focus on the things that do? So can you bring those together, cost and energy sappers?
So, we absolutely have entered this market to make it accessible and to democratize action. And so we have unashamedly come in at the lowest possible price point that you could possibly make this happen. And the idea is that we scale fast, right? So our platform costs a couple of hundred. The entry level is a couple of $100 a month, so a couple of grand a year, and that gives you access to the first 10 products of upload your data, play, learn, see what pops out. That's obviously, and we will provide you, we've got data support packs if you need a bit of help getting that stuff up and running. So you can start to build an understanding of what's going on in your supply chain for really, a couple of $1,000s. The verification starts at 3,800. Again, we've tried to make that as accessible as we possibly can. And if you do multiple, because of the way the platform works, if you've got multiple variants where you change the casters or you change a finish or you whatever, and that's leading you to a 6% variation, which technically under an EPD rule, would need a new report. But we only have to verify one other piece of data, then we can look at doing discounts for that family. And so in that way, we're really trying to make it as accessible as possible for people to do either what they need, either get one done in the family and then have, you could have those pre-sales conversations, those kind of what realm are you in, what's the best you could do for me? Because that's the other thing we find actually is customers field all these questions, they run off and do all this expensive work, and then actually they don't get the sale for a different reason. Very frustrating. But actually, if all you need to do is say, yeah, we're about X kilos and we've come down 5% from last year because of these innovations, then you're in that conversation and you're in it early. So yeah, a couple of grand for the subscription and then £4 really each for a verification. And that is an order of magnitude less than you would be able to get an EPD for currently. Now there are new tools entering markets for EPD and do-it-yourself tools. We looked at a couple of those early on, and there's some very credible players in that space, but they really are built for consultants still. Like if you use the Rebuilt tool, you'll see that it is as plain English as we can possibly make it, as simple as we can possibly make it. So it really should be able to be self-serve, because it can be a bit of a bewildering job. So yeah, so you can get 10 products done, 20 products done for the same as one EPD, which means you don't have to choose your favorite child. You can choose all of your favorite children.
It's good. That's excellent. Just thinking about the process. So I've never been responsible for actually going through the process of doing this, and I think some of the GECA licensees won't have either, right? This will be completely new to them.
This is going to be easy for those guys.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, you designed it for them, right? You designed it for people like me, and that's a wonderful thing. But just do you have any tips on how to make sure we don't spend too much time on things that don't matter, and just really, maximize our limited time and effort to get the results that we need?
Yeah. So I think the first time's always the hardest, right? Same as anything in life. But as I said in the setup, really, if you've got a good understanding of your material composition and it's where it's sourced from, if you understand how much recyclate is in it, and if you then really understand your factory, your last point of assembly, and what is the energy that is driving that, transport, and then a little bit of waste and recycling and packaging in the fringes. So most people have access to that data. I think what some of the pitfalls are really chasing some of the details of what does my supplier's supplier do. If you use background data sets like EcoInvent or ROS LCI, they've taken care of that for you. So you don't have to crawl all the way back to the point of extraction. And again, we would recommend using, if you've got upstream suppliers, you've got good credible claims, and again, they've done that work. So the other thing is we do sort of surface where are the sources of the emissions. So you can see where the materiality sits. We find a lot of people, chasing a paint or a finish, or and that can be challenging. Sometimes there are unexpected global warming potentials lurking in there. So we need to understand everything that's in it to be able to give guidance about whether it matters. But because we're looking through a carbon lens, if there's not a chemical reaction that's driving, a carbon emission, that makes things a bit simpler. So I think we tend to do a bit of diagnostic in the onboarding session. That tends to surface the most important things. If there's something in there but you don't have enough, we just pull on the background data, and that will tell you whether or not it's really going to matter to the overall kind of emissions factor that's set up in it. So I think the most complicated things is if you've got a really complicated factory doing lots of different things, there's a bit of an upstream challenge there, because what we tend to do is say, this is how many things come out of the factory. This is 10% of them. So this is 10% of the energy consumption. So if there is great complexity in there, you might want to do some unpicking to understand how much energy is attributable to the product that you're trying to assess right now. But again, we haven't come across a problem we couldn't solve for in that regard. So I think, the key message really is get in and make a start. You might probably uncover something curly. It probably won't matter. And if it does, then you go and get a consultant, or you trigger another piece of work and you probe a bit deeper. But, because we're a life cycle assessment, even though we're just doing carbon, there's a tremendous body of literature for us to call on globally. So when we hit those line balls or those awkward value judgments, there is an incredible LCA body of knowledge to be drawn from. So we're standing on the shoulders of giants and trying to navigate some of those complexities, and most of that is, you know, generously been put into the public domain. So
yeah,
readily accessible and easy to surface.
I think, Esther, I mean, thank you for all of that. You give me comfort that all of this is much more accessible than I think many of us would envisage when we think about the need to measure embodied carbon. So I really appreciate the way that's happened.
I think I would just say, you know, I've worked in this, but, you know, neighbours for many years, and you know, at city and state scale, everybody hates their numbers. Everybody wants better data than they've got right now. Everybody worries about the dark spots they've got. We are all on a journey together. We start today, we do the best that we can, we fill the bits that we can't, and then I should also say, when you get a verification, you get a data quality report in the background that helps you to see how much primary and secondary data, which is missing, that's important, and that guides you and helps you the next time around. So treat it as an ongoing journey rather than I can't possibly start because I don't know everything before I start.
Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think, you know, in one of the things you mentioned, neighbors there, to their credit, one of the decisions they made, I think a couple of years ago now, was to say anytime people are doing reporting where they don't have transparent, verified data about their carbon, we're just going to lump them in with the worst performers.
And that creates an incentive, yeah.
It does, because what that means is even if you have holes in your data, even if you have some sources where you suddenly discover, crap, this is really bad for my carbon reporting numbers, it's still going to be better than the worst case, which is what silence in this space gives you, right? If you don't say anything, if you don't have any data, you get lumped in with the very worst offenders when it comes to your product carbon numbers. So I think that's a really excellent thing. Well, that is most of the questions that we have. I'm aware we're getting close to the end of your lunchtime, and does anyone, if anyone has any particular questions that they wanted to ask, please chuck them in the Q&A stream. Otherwise, though, I think, Esther, I have a couple more questions I might throw to you if you're okay. Or is there anything else?
We have a question from Lisa Barbara in the Q&A.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I see that one. We've sort of spoken to it a little bit, but I'll maybe just reprise some of it. And Lisa, if there's anything particular you want to tease out, let me know. Can you please explain the verification aspect? So there's a price to use the platform to understand the numbers and to see the hotspots and potential improvement, and then to take those numbers to market, we get verified. That's exactly right. So you have a workspace, if you will. You can manage your products in there. So once you've set up one product, you can hit duplicate, and you can say, what if that was zero transport? Or what if I sold that with a different leg or a different blend? And you can see each one of those impacts. Our recommendation is you verify your base case, because then you're iterating off a good solid foundation. And then when you hit verification, that's the point where you say, these numbers are true, accurate, and complete, and I want an assessor to review them. So you go from, you know, a support world to an assessment world. And then we have an LCA assessment team. You will be asked to upload your invoices, energy bills, any other system outputs that are important for your product or assumptions that you've made, and they will be reviewed and assessed. And then you will get a verified report that you can place in the public domain. Until then, it's at your own risk situation. Only when that verification is complete should you use that in the public domain. And you will get a data quality report that tells you how much primary data you've got, what's the quality of that data, and where could you work more in the future to improve it. So subscription is that $2,000 a month thing I talked about, and the verification is a per
$2,000 a year, just to be clear. You said a couple $100 a month is where it starts, right?
That's correct. Yeah,
yes.
$2,000 a year, and then 3,800 for each individual verification, or we can do bulk packs.
Amazing.
And I should also say, Josh and I had some conversations about doing some freebies for GECA members. So if you are particularly keen to come and have a no risk trial, your first PCF with us, we will do free for the first couple of people who come forward on that. So reach out to either Josh or myself after the call. We really want to see GECA members in the platform, and so we're really excited to be able to offer that to this cohort here today.
And I just want to add on to that and say, I kind of skated over it earlier, but even today, if you have verified carbon numbers for example, in the built environment, you get 2 extra responsible product value points in the Green Star system, if that's important to you. So what that means is, for example, if you make, say, building insulation, right? You go from being good practice under GECA to best practice when you've got that product carbon certification. So it provides immediate value right now to do that. But again, in 18 months' time, it's actually going to be necessary, particularly in that space, to have this kind of information if you want to be considered best practice. Because even if you're doing everything right, if you don't have that verified number to prove it, you're not going to be considered best practice going forward. And so it's an important journey to start now to move that direction. Because none of us has enough time to devote to sustainability as much time as we'd like. And so it's a bit of a journey to get started, and we should start to. So cool. All right. We don't have a lot of time left. Maybe just very quickly, Esther, could we just say, what's your view quickly in how these schemes help companies use their own sustainability to stay competitive?
Look, I think the less money you spend counting beans, the more you spend doing stuff. And that might be other sustainability actions, or it might be driving down costs in your supply chain. So that's the simplest thing, is comply for less and do more.
Yes.
There's one key message that comes out of this. As I said, we are seeing a lot of top tier companies where this is a pay to play, and it's an annualized pay to play. If you look at the European market, you find big multinationals just saying to their key suppliers, send me your PCF at the end of each year. So when they do their financial accounts and they bought 10,000 widgets off you in that period, they want to know what the carbon intensity in that year was, and you should be able to provide it. And the other thing, I guess, so the way that we think about it is we've got the marketplace, which is for people, for architects and specifiers to be able to discover, and you can export into a bill of materials to go into a neighbour's assessment. But also, we know that there are lots and lots of other software platforms that are used. So the software platforms that are being used by architects are different from the ones being used by QSs, are different from the ones being used by government procurement departments, are different from the way that the CFO wants to deal with that data. So we are not trying to do all of those jobs as well. There are new software platforms entering the market that will aggregate that data and kind of move it around. There are digital product passports. Our intention is to make sure that your verified data is fit for purpose to be transferred seamlessly into these other systems. So it's not just how many eyeballs did I get in a marketplace. It's, if I've got that number, I know that my customer is going to receive it because there are digital integrations that are helping me to get on a preferred suppliers list, to be able to provide that into that design software, into that CAD/CAM system, into that building information management system. And if we look at this space in a couple of years' time, that's where I think we should be. You do this once, you give it to Rebuilt or to an EPD hub, and they will normalize it, make sure that it's fit for purpose to be exchanged, and that will travel up and down the ecosystem in a seamless way. And moving into that mindset, I think, is the other really key benefit here. It's like, create it once, set it free, let it do the work, iterate and improve. And that, I think, is quite radically different from where we've been before, and is an exciting part of the kind of moment that we're in.
And I think that iterate and improve, Esther, is for me, is a really important thing, because when it becomes affordable to experiment, to try different things, to, make changes, that's really important. I think it's also especially important in industries like furniture, where
Mm.
your product lines change a lot, right? That chair just didn't sell last year, so we're dropping that. We're bringing in a new one. It's got a different fabric. It's got a different set of wheels, whatever it is. And this allows people to be actually thinking ahead of time. Well, if I were to do that, what does that mean? Okay, I'm not going to use those casters in my design process because they always
Mm.
have a really high carbon number, right? Whatever it is, that helps you to, I mean, the tools that you are providing and the standards that GECA provide, they are there to give guidance, to allow you to think ahead of time, even as you're innovating, about the best way to innovate so that each year you can make changes to, make new products, different designs, whatever it is that are improving over time. And I think that's a very powerful tool to enable all of these fine people on the call. So, all right, we are about out of time. Um, Final thoughts, Esther. Is there anything that you wanted to wrap up with, and then I'll do the same.
I was going to make some grandiose gestures about the state of the state of carbon emissions globally, but I think we all know that, right? The urgency of this action remains constant. I think I'd really just want to maybe focus more on the people on this call who have already demonstrated a commitment to leadership and how special and important and much needed that is. So I hope we've teased out for you today that thank you for all the work you've done so far. Everything you've done with GECA is the right work in the right order, and hopefully we can just make another little contribution to make sure that it's fit for purpose for hitting those regulations and driving and accelerating the carbon reductions that we need to see in the future. So I really want to work with you guys. I really want your feedback. If you think, well, all sounds very interesting, but it's not hitting for a note, pick up the phone, let's talk about it. But we're working hard to make this as simple and streamlined and smooth for you as possible. And I'd really love for you all to come forward and have a play and have a learn, and let's have a yarn.
Sounds great. Esther, it's amazing. At the end of this webinar, I'm actually even more convinced of how the values of what you are doing and the values of what GECA has done for the last 25 years are very much aligned. And I thank you for those words. Thank you for the way you've explained those things. And I'll just, reiterate to those on the call that we have been confused about something. Jumping on a call with Esther is a very quick way to solve and answer those things. Like us, you look for pragmatic ways to help people do business differently, to do it better, to make a difference, and to use the sustainability efforts they're already doing to their fullest reach, because we know that those trends are growing, right? Whether it's government, whether it's in investors or builders or whoever it is, we know that these trends for reporting verified carbon are growing, and for understanding sustainability are growing. And so people need to use these tools. And it will help them to make sure they stay relevant in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, because this is going to get more critical, and the pain is going to go up, not down, if we don't get moving on it. So I'm so glad that Rebuilt has entered the market and brought this tool to a place that we didn't have it before. Thank you for taking your time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye for now.